Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Steve Baker, who's an investigative journalist with The Blaze, has now been arrested by the FBI. For what exactly, Glenn? This is an outrageous story. Please walk us through it.
He has been arrested for 4 misdemeanors. He faced the judge about an hour ago in leg irons and shackles. The first misdemeanor was being on property that was national security blocked off. That's everybody who was there, including the New York Times, ABC, NBC, CBS. He was there as a journalist. Then they said that he paraded and was disruptive. Thank God we have access to the footage now, thanks to our Speaker of the House. We got the footage. We are now editing every single piece of footage where Steve is in the Capitol. He is doing nothing but standing by his camera, his tripod, or taking pictures or writing. He is acting as a journalist. This is completely outrageous, completely outrageous.
Glenn, you have been warning about this coming tyranny for as long as I've been listening and learning from you. I know it's probably an exhaustive question to answer, but, did you ever really think it would get to this level this quickly, this flagrantly?
I've always said, I hope that I'm wrong. I don't want to be right about these things. I'm terrified if I'm right. And now we are seeing all of it come to fruition. I mean, Charlie used to watch me when you were a kid and on
That's
Fox,
right.
and it was all in the distant future, if. And here we are. And what they're doing to Catherine Herridge from CBS just dumped her like garbage on the street. And the feds have come after her because she reported on Chinese infiltration in our schools, and she wouldn't reveal her source.
The FBI's tyrannical actions and the new border invasion movie. Welcome to the Rob Maness Show here on Whistleblower Wednesday, live on Patriot.tv and the X Spaces simulcast. Well, as he told us what happened on the show last week, last Friday, as you just heard, the Blaze journalist Steve Baker was arrested and charged for his reporting activities in the United States Capitol on January 26, 2021. This may seem routine to some Americans, considering how ill-informed many are about the J6 political prisoners, but I see this action as another formal attack on the First Amendment by this current regime, much like what would happen in the old communist USSR that I fought against and helped bring down, and the current communist China that we're still fighting against. Baker was handcuffed and shackled in leg irons for his appearance in court on 4 misdemeanor charges, while those accused of felonies were not in the same courtroom. The disdain for American citizens who oppose them shouldn't surprise anybody from this regime. After all, they are directing an all-out invasion of over 10 million illegal aliens at our southern border so far. This is the ultimate America Last policy and reveals how much the regime really hates us. That's right, you and I. Well, FBI tyranny is why former FBI agent, whistleblower, and the senior fellow at the Center for Renewing America, Steve Friend, is here for the first half of our show today. And the invasion is why Veterans for Trump national spokesman, retired Rear Admiral Chuck Kubik, is going to join us in the second half of the show to talk about the premiere of a brand new documentary movie about the border invasion. First up, Steve Friend, friend of the show, I might add. Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Thanks for having me, Colonel. Great to be here.
It's good to see you. Just in general, I wanted to get your thoughts on Mr. Baker's arrest and the treatment he received, because I don't know anybody that's ever been leg ironed and handcuffed for a court appearance for misdemeanor charges.
Well, Steve Baker is a friend of mine. We've been acquainted now for over a year. When he first reached out to me to invite me onto his podcast and talk, and he has now since gotten on with the Blaze, and I'm grateful that they've reached out to him and stood behind him for what he's experienced. But when it came to Steve's experience, it's tremendously atypical to anything that I ever encountered in my time in the FBI. And I investigated and arrested over 150 violent criminals and didn't handcuff any of them behind their back because there are mechanisms you can do it safely. This is a great example of something that I've been harping on for the last year and a half of the FBI's willingness to make the process the punishment for someone. It is not the job or the duty or the directive of the FBI to do that. Their job is to gather the facts and present them, and then that person has their day in court in front of a jury of their peers. But now, as we're seeing in the last few years, especially with these January 6th cases with so many people, the FBI is willing to use all the levers of power, all the processes at its disposal to become the judge, jury, and executioner. And they tried to do it with Steve. They tried to have him arrive at the FBI to become arrested, and they did that with a complaint as opposed to actually indicting him like you would do for a crime that was 3+ years old. But they had him as through a complaint arrest and tried to have him arrive with shorts and flip-flops on so they could put him in a cold holding facility for 4 or 5 hours just to rub his nose in it, just to let him know that they could. And again, we're back to the process as a punishment, which is not what anyone who swears an oath to defend the Constitution and uphold the rule of law should be interested in doing.
Yeah, man. I mean, just hearing you talk about it as a former FBI agent, it just sends very much anger through my whole body as somebody that served in the U.S. government for over 30 years of my own life and risked everything. Yeah, and whose friends died and everything. But before I ask you this question, though, I just do want to make a comment about the suspendables, and thank you guys, and Kyle is in the spaces listening, I think, or he was before the show. But we really appreciate that. Steve's a friend of mine too. I discovered him because he was the only person reporting on the Stewart Rhodes trial, the Oath Keepers trial, the initial one, every day. And then that's when I started getting him on my show. So I consider him a great friend. And he's a great friend of freedom, too. But he was wearing that lapel pin that you have on. Just explain that real quick, Steve.
It's the organization, I guess you would call us, where it's just a collection of suspended FBI employees. We sort of just reached out to each other to lean on each other. We're all sort of under the weight of the government, and we, on a lark, were just joking around and looking at our resumes and realizing that we're probably never going to be welcomed back by our ex-girlfriend. That's the FBI. And so what are we going to do? And joked that maybe we have an interesting set of skills. We could be mercenaries one day. And then that led us to joking about the movies series, The Expendables. And we said, well, we could be the Suspendables instead of the Expendables. And then wouldn't you know it, Alan Fuhr at the New York Times got word of that and tried to use it as a derogatory term in a hit piece against us. And we, at that point, said, well, this is something we need to lean into. So what is a suspendable? You don't have to be a suspended FBI employee. You just have to be willing to be someone that's willing to do the right thing at the right time in the right way and for the right reasons. And that's Steve Baker. That's someone who was at the Capitol as a journalist reporting on things and has stood up against the government when they told him to shut his mouth. And for that reason, we were extremely proud and honored that he wore his Suspendables lapel, which I do have on. And people can get their own at the-suspendables.com. And what you should know is that store supports Garrett O'Boyle, who is a indefinitely suspended FBI whistleblower, has now been paid for 1.5 years, and all the proceeds go to support him and his family. He's got 4 little girls.
Yeah, another great American Garrett is, and we appreciate him and everything, all the sacrifices all of you guys have made for our country. I do have to ask this question, man. On the old saying about, and Sean Hannity says this a lot. I think he still says it, maybe. But the rank and file at the FBI are great people. It's just the leadership that's the problem here. I don't think I believe that. I at one time I did believe that, but it sure seems like if you have agents at the agent level that want to do punishment on a man like Steve Baker for 4 misdemeanors, I mean, wanting to put him in a cell for 4 or 5 hours, a cold cell with shorts and flip flops, in order to humiliate him and make him feel the burn, so to speak, is just lower than low, in my opinion. I mean,
This is the
it that bad
example.
in the rank and file?
It is, which is why this nation can't continue to operate with an FBI. It is not a change at the top that is necessary. Whole cloth, this agency needs to be broken into a million pieces and scattered to the wind. And I'll tell you why. Every FBI employee goes to the Holocaust Memorial and the MLK Memorial as part of your training, and you learn there about the banality of evil, about organizations like Police Battalion 101 that just follow orders. And you learn that it's incumbent on you, if you are going to be in a position of public trust and you swear an oath to protect the Constitution, that you have to throw the flag if you believe the FBI is on that road in any way or any capacity, because we have genocide and we have civil rights atrocities occur when people just follow orders. So you have, in the case with Steve, an agent, Craig Noyes, who works in Raleigh, North Carolina for the FBI Charlotte Division, who might be a true believer. He might be just following orders, but it doesn't matter. He knows what is going on there. He knows what he's doing to Steve is wholly inappropriate. And even if he is just following orders and just earning a paycheck, that is unacceptable, insufficient for anyone who is in a position of public trust, has the gun and the badge and the force of law behind them. The problem with the FBI is that it is a pyramid. At the very top, you have political capture, as Sean Hannity might be pointing out. But at the very bottom, people are so granularly given their duties and responsibilities, and they are able to delude themselves in what they're doing. My own experience was no different than that. I was told, Steve, you're just transporting someone from the point of arrest to court. But I was willing to actually take my oath seriously and my training seriously and take a step back and look at the entire situation and say that, look, I might be transporting this person, but it's an unjust arrest. It's a wholly inappropriate thing that we're doing to this person. And unfortunately, too many people, largely all of them at the FBI at every level, are willing to just put their head down and follow the orders, which is why we cannot operate. We have to eliminate the FBI.
Yeah, we've got a lot of institutions to make that correction in, and this is one of the main ones. And my old one, the Department of Defense, is another. Let's go over to our live audience and Spaces and the hosts over there. I know we have some questions for you from them. I try to take one every 15-minute segment. Go ahead, Kat and Shell.
I'll ask a question. I don't see any hands up. So if we do, I agree with you, by the way, Stephen, about eliminating the FBI. So what does that look like in the future? Do we rebuild another organization to replace them, or do we just basically redistribute those responsibilities out? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Would you think there should be a replacement agency for them?
I think if you would do away with the agency or radically reform it in a way, I think that the best solution we could have across the entire federal government would be to eliminate the 1811 criminal investigator series. That's the special agent. I don't think that any agent of the government should have the force of the gun and the badge behind them. They could be unarmed investigators. I would leave one small carve out for the United States Marshal Service, and I would do that so they could run the courts and they could have fugitive task forces, and then most importantly, have the ability to deputize local law enforcement. Make the deputies who have been working in a criminal investigative division at a sheriff's office or a police department for a number of years, and they know the usual suspects and they know the crime that afflicts their community, give them the ability to bring state and federal charges because they're incentivized to bring the crime down in their communities. So this is not defunding the police. This is empowering local police.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I've been thinking about is take the pieces from the FBI that we really don't need anymore. I mean, we might have needed it historically at one time or another when Hoover created it, but we really don't need that agent level work, and that's part of the issue, Steve. Well, I'm not sure that it should have any control over domestic intelligence at all either, and I'll show you why when we come back from this break with a little clip about what the Canadian government is up to with surveilling its citizens and asking its other citizens to tattle on, even if they think they're going to say something that might be hate speech. So we'll be right back with FBI whistleblower, senior fellow at the Center for Renewing America, Steve Friend, here on the Rob Maness Show at Patriot.tv Live.
Experts say that Russian hackers found a way to hack our utilities, and the hackers may still be in there, waiting to strike.
Go after their power, go after their water, and you can bring a nation to its knees.
They're identifying targets, they're positioning malware so they could pull the trigger when they wanted to.
Experts see the intrusion as a possible precursor to an unprecedented Russian cyber attack that could, in the event of war, devastate the U.S.
We know that China has been hacking everything they can and stealing our intellectual property. They want to take down America's economy. They want to take down our morale. They understand that if they can destroy our economy, they can destroy our future. We're at war.
The markets are getting crazy, and now is the time to protect yourself from economic turmoil. Silver is in the headlines right now and creating lots of excitement as the price of silver is extremely attractive compared to gold. A call to Swiss America gets you the scoop on whether the silver opportunity is for real. What you'll discover will really blow your mind. Today, silver faces a huge shortage due to the rising demand by military, solar, electric cars, and computers, all of which depend on silver. But right now, silver is priced to sell according to worldwide experts. Now, to help you get started, Swiss America is offering beautiful United States Walking Liberty half dollars, issued by the U.S. Mint from 1916 to 1947 and minted in 90% pure silver for a special introductory price. Limit of $250 per customer while supplies last. So call the number on your screen or visit SwissAmerica.com, because now is the time to rediscover silver.
Stakes have really never been higher, and the traditional liberals seem to be cheerleading this, Glenn. And I know you've covered this extensively. And now the traditional liberals that have become leftists. I mean, we still have Alan Dershowitz, who's a free speech guy, and we have Matt Taibbi and Schellenberger. There's still some guys out there that are free speech people. What is the end game for the regime by doing this? And Glenn, I can't help but think, and allow me to speculate, are they trying to raise the temperature of the pressure cooker to create a volcano?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you want crazy things to happen, you arrest journalists.
Yeah. And let me tell you something. What they really want is what Trudeau did in Canada yesterday. I don't know if you saw the House bill, I think it's S63 up in Canada, and it looks like it's going to pass. And it is the most draconian bill you've ever seen on free speech. You can turn in your neighbor with information that you don't ever have to reveal who you are. It's all secret. If you are afraid that they might say something that would be like hate speech, not even say it, you think they might, they can be fined $20,000, and you don't ever get to face your accuser. If you said anything at any time on any platform that someone finds hateful, they can report you, and you can get this, life in prison. They don't even give life in prison in Canada for murder.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and our guest is former FBI agent Steve Friend of the Suspendables and the Center for Renewing America. And Steve, last break we talked about Steve Baker's arrest and how agents at the grassroots level are behaving in this way that is really antithetical to the ideas and the ideals of the United States of America. But when you hear that, I think about the function of their domestic intelligence function and the tools that they have available, like FISA 702 and those kind of things, and to take it to the level of that bill that Canada is trying to pass that Mr. Beck just described. I mean, we truly are in an era of the American Stasi, the American Gestapo. I mean, what he just described is exactly how citizens under Nazi Germany, citizens under East Germany under communism, citizens under the Soviet Union, and currently citizens under communist China and other authoritarian dictatorships live under. That is so un-American. I don't think that the FBI should have the ability to have that type of intelligence capability because it just enables that kind of behavior. And that will happen. What he described in Canada will happen here in the United States if we continue to do this, won't we?
Domestic intelligence agency with the force of the gun and the badge, very much like a Stasi, a Cheka, a KGB. And it gets even worse than that, Colonel, because you have situations like we've been debating in the public sphere now for a couple of weeks about the threat of the quote unquote Christian nationalist. And here's what I'll say about that when it comes to an intelligence agency. No debate over what the ideology actually is. But when you have an intelligence agency under pressure to create intelligence products, what you'll have are proactive intelligence analysts who go to these quote unquote nonpartisan sources like the Public Religion Research Institute that says that Christian nationalism correlates very strongly with people who vote for former President Trump. And then you have the president of the United States currently, President Biden, addressing the nation in September of 2022, where he says that supporters of Donald Trump are a threat to the nation. And then you have the Public Religion Research Institute say that the Christian nationalist threat is connected to, even though there's no inconsistency across the races for people who hold a Christian worldview, it's connected and refracted through a lens of white supremacy. So now you have a workaround for the FBI's caveat, which is that it does not investigate First Amendment protected activity, does not investigate religious worship. But if there's a connection to racially motivated violent extremism, which is a category of domestic terrorism, now the FBI has all it needs through an intelligence product to launch itself into an assessment and eventually a full investigation of a vulnerable person for engaging in religious worship. And they will say that it's connected to racially motivated violent extremism or parenthetically anti-government, anti-authority violent extremism. And the FBI itself has said that that is just the perception of government overreach. Now we have a weaponized federal law enforcement apparatus that can go against the enemies of the political enemies of someone in a position of authority.
Yeah, it's the other issue that it creates for me is it takes the FBI's under its current form and function off the ball of the real threats. We had breaking news just before we came on the air out of Tennessee. The Department of Homeland Security issued a bulletin warning about bomb threats against Trump supporters and attacks on Trump supporters, and that is the kind of, we know that's a threat because anti-Trump people have been acting with violence since before the man took office. I was at the inauguration in 2016 and saw the violence myself, was almost attacked while standing in line for an inaugural ball in a tux with bear spray. If the police hadn't been close enough to get the 4 people that had it away from us, they almost got 5 or 6 of us sprayed down and was attacked again trying to get in the speech, Steve. I mean, how can we have an FBI that's anything even more than just a crime lab? That's what I think its sole federal function should be, because really local law enforcement and state level law enforcement has all the capability that it needs nowadays, as opposed to what existed when the FBI was created. Doesn't that make more sense, just to have it be a nationwide crime lab to support local and state law enforcement officers instead of having all this capability to attack the wrong people?
I think that's probably a great idea. Maybe have a statistical aggregation aspect so we can look at what nationwide crime stats are. Everybody could submit them there. But this is the problem with the FBI as currently constituted. It exists on the fumes of its reputation, of the achievements that it has in the past. And then, more than anything else, it exists on the reputation that we know about it through pop culture, through the TV and the movies. People think that the FBI does more than it really does. And the FBI relies on that. And all it essentially does now is generate headlines for itself. And it does headlines in two different fashions. It goes for something that it feels that it will be largely unread but look impactful and will indict Russians for war crimes. But if you actually read the press release that the FBI itself puts out, you'll find out that the FBI doesn't know the identity of the people who committed these alleged war crimes, and they're still in Russia, and the FBI has no mechanism for actually bringing them into custody. And the second thing that they'll do is they'll co-opt, and through a process called adoption, local cases from local departments that have fully investigated crimes, and then they'll put the FBI moniker on top and say, look what we did, look at this great work. And it'll be something like what happened in Las Cruces, New Mexico, where there was someone who went and robbed a Lowe's hardware store of an air conditioning unit for $500 and was apprehended by local police that day. But the FBI comes in and says, well, that air conditioner crossed state lines, so we're going to charge him with armed robbery because he used a gun that crossed state lines. And we will put him in prison for 4 years and claim that we stopped a serial armed robber because of our Project Safe Neighborhoods initiative. Neither one of those two things, be it the war crimes or the Lowe's armed robber, are the duty of the FBI to look into. The FBI is not a contributor. It's law enforcement cosplay. So let's just admit that. And let's make it a crime lab. Let's make it a statistical aggregator and take away from it the duties and responsibilities that we're assuming that it has, and give those back to where it needs to go, to local law enforcement, to state authorities who have the wherewithal, have the experience, have the motivation to bring the crime down. Because here's the dirty secret about the FBI. The FBI has a quota system. And the FBI uses local law enforcement to juke its stats, to justify its existence, to justify its budget. They are incentivized to bring crime up because they can go to Congress and say, you gave us $11 billion last year, Congress. Why don't you give us 12? Look at all the good work we did. But you have a local deputy, you have a local sheriff's office who wants to bring crime down because your sheriff is your most important locally elected law enforcement official, and he is motivated to serve his constituents to bring the crime down. So if we empower that guy to do what's necessary and to remove that from the FBI, that is the best way that we can maintain law and order in this country.
Absolutely. And not to mention, he's the constitutional authority in the FBI. The federal law enforcement really doesn't have constitutional enforcement capability. But let's take another question from the live audience before we let you go, Steve. Go ahead, Kat. Who's next?
Derek has a question.
Good morning, everybody. And hello, Connor, and other people in the space. I have a statement really along with a question. I don't think the FBI need to be shut down completely, but I think me and like Steve, Kyle, Gilligan, I think these are the type of people that need to be at the head of the FBI to correct it. And my question is, have any of y'all been in touch with the Trump team, maybe?
Good question. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I've not talked to any candidate for office. I'm willing to put my ideas to any candidate. It doesn't matter even to me about the political party. To me, the threshold for someone who wants to get, especially into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, is the appetite to actually eliminate the FBI or reform it in a way that no one will recognize. So I haven't had the opportunity to talk to any of these candidates, but my ideas are out there. I'm happy to provide them to anyone. And I think that as far as being in a leadership role of the FBI in the future, I don't know if I'm the guy for that. I think probably somebody like a Bernie Kerik, who's run a large police department in the past with some national security responsibilities. That's the type of person we want. We don't need another Department of Justice attorney like Christopher Wray at the head.
Thank you, Steve. One more
ahead.
thing. May I give them your information? I'm part of the Trump team, so may I pass your information on to them?
You can. @RealSteveFriend is the Twitter handle.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Derek. Thank you very much for the question. It was a great question and really a good answer. Bernie Kerik would be perfect for that. But he ought to be having his eyes on people like you and Kyle Seraphin and Mr. O'Boyle and others who have had the courage, Steve, to step up and step out to protect the American people, because that's what you're doing, is you're continuing to protect and serve, just like you did when you were inside the organization. Well, we appreciate you coming on with us. Tell folks, you think you just gave your Twitter handle, but where else can they find you guys in the Suspendables, and give that website for getting buying the lapel pins again, please.
Well, thanks for that. You can go to www.the-suspendables.com to support Garrett O'Boyle. find me on X at Real Steve Friend. Garrett and I have a podcast called the American Radicals Podcast. You can follow everything that I'm doing for the Center for Renewing America at americarenewing.com. And I also have a show on Patriot TV with you. I will be on later today at 3 Eastern. That is the True Blue with Steve Friend show, very much after my book, which is called True Blue. So I've got my hands on lots of stuff, and I appreciate the opportunity to share that with everyone.
Absolutely. We'll get you on again sometime. You stole my line. I was just about to say that about Patriot.tv. Well, thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate it. Stay safe. Keep up the great work, and God bless you. Steve Friend from the Center for Renewing America, FBI whistleblower and solid American working for you and me. Well, we're going to take this break, and we'll come back with Admiral Chuck Kubik, who is the national spokesman for Veterans for Trump. He's going to break some news about a new documentary about the border invasion, and we're going to get him to talk about the great news from last night, the big win on Super Tuesday, and the breaking news about a certain Nikki that's coming today. I'm Rob Maness, Patriot.tv Live. It's Whistleblower Wednesday. We'll be right back.
Sounds rolling. All 3 cameras. We're good.
Is there any regrets that you have in life? I should sit here and say, yeah, I got a lot of regrets. But when I look back on my life and I understand the lives that were lost, I mean, I'm sitting here with you. And I can tell my story.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today for lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
He was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
Really brilliant military career, serving 33 years. Why was he being so elusive?
Mike Flynn told the truth and faced life in prison.
Superfoodshouse.com. Transform your life today. We have partnered with a superfood manufacturer and offer you a one-stop destination for organic, non-GMO superfoods. At superfoodshouse.com, we offer a premium selection of nutrient-rich superfoods, from the revitalizing protein shakes to the Super Amino 23 protein tablets. These tablets help your body rapidly absorb protein, creating lean muscle and burning fat. Visit superfoodshouse.com right now and seize limited time offers on superfood products. With just a few clicks, you can have these nutritional powerhouses delivered right to your door. Superfoodshouse.com, where wellness meets convenience. Your path to a healthier lifestyle begins here.
And within a matter of 2 months, Joe Biden went with the most secure border ever to historic illegal immigration. So he opened the floodgates.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum.
Biden has created this border crisis by allowing these folks to come across our border, and that has been detrimental to our country.
They have deliberately opened the border to fundamentally change the fabric of our country.
Now Americans across the country are bracing for the end of Title 42 as thousands of migrants wait along the Mexican side of the border.
Officials telling NBC News most migrants are now being released into the U.S.
It is becoming harder and harder not to conclude that the border crisis is intentional.
We have over 200,000 illegal aliens that have been flown in from their home country directly into the U.S.
Nearly 2,000 migrants were moved from Floyd Bennett Field to James Madison High School, forcing those students there to learn remotely yesterday.
I see towers here with cameras mounted. And how many of these do they have down the
a bunch of them,
frequency?
All over the place.
And do any of them work?
No.
The last president obviously was very firm in, I'm going to build a wall.
We will build the wall, don't worry. We will build the wall.
Majority of these people are fighting age men. We are watching as we're being invaded.
We have untold
numbers of terrorists who have entered our country.
When we were getting ready, I just got a call from some intel that there's possibly 20 to 50 Pakistani nationals possibly on the terror watch list coming through right behind us here in Eagle Pass, where a federal judge has ordered the Biden administration to stop cutting that razor wire and allowing the illegals to come in.
When I was living in Iran, their teachings is about destroying America, and they believe that they will destroy America within. You can't put the policy of your country in the hands of evil people.
That brings us back to the realization that elections have consequences.
All of the horrible things that an open border means. What I'm most angry about, 2-year-old girl crossing the river on top of his father's shoulders. Joe Biden, you can go straight to hell.
President Trump, I believe we need to stand behind him and support him before it's too late.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and that trailer right there is from Veterans for America First, aka Veterans for Trump, and that's our new documentary. I'm part of that organization, and the national spokesman for that organization is retired Admiral Chuck Kubik. He's with us by audio, and Admiral Kubik, thanks for joining us on the Rob Maness Show. Talk a little bit about when the movie is going to premiere. I don't think it's out completely in public yet, and let folks know where they'll be able to find it before we dive into the details as to why.
Yeah, hey, it's great to be with you today, Rob. Sorry that I've got some sort of a Murphy bug here with my my video, but we're going to be premiering the movie at on Saturday evening, the 9th of March, and we're going to be doing this in just south of Atlanta, in Fayetteville, Atlanta, and it'll be starting around 6 o'clock. We have a number of speakers. The movie runs for about an hour, and then we'll be taking questions and answers afterwards. And then it'll be available on streaming services. I don't have those at my fingertips right now, and online at our website so that they can basically go on and download. I think there'll be a small donation, with the site, but we can get that information, to you as to how they go onto the streaming channel of the website and download it.
Well, thank you for that, Admiral. And I will add to that it's going to be on Patriot.tv. I don't know what the schedule for the broadcasting will be yet, but we do know that the folks over at Veterans for Trump have offered it to us to be able to screen it right here on the network, and I look forward to that. It looks like it's going to be a great presentation. I don't really need to ask you, but for the sake of the audience that might see and hear this, Admiral Kubik, why the topic of the border invasion? What's driving that choice to do this documentary and get it released now? Because we're right after Super Tuesday. Mr. Trump's now the nominee. It's time to focus on the general. And I know that we're all about prioritizing what the issues are going to be that the American people care about. So why border invasion?
Well, I'll tell you, Rob, this is the second in a series of 3 documentaries, where the first one was released last November, and it was called The Fall of Deceit, which talked about the corruptness of the judicial system in Washington, D.C., focused around, some of the events that have happened there in the past, and the reaction to January 6th. Again, calling attention to people who know about this, but seeing the intimate details of that. The second is this video documentary on the border, realizing that it's been with us, this problem, for 3 years, but there are just a few people now, or some people, that are awakening to it. A lot of us know about it, but the vast majority of Americans, I think it gets lost in the noise of the daily news or their daily lives. And then we'll be producing a third one, which will be a call to action for veterans across America to speak up and to come to the aid of our country. So this one is highlighting a crisis which affects us all, but which people don't really know a lot about it. They don't recognize that it's been going on for 3 years. They don't see necessarily how serious it is, both to the security of our country and to those particularly unaccompanied minors, younger children who are being human trafficked. So it's coming out here now to basically have people well aware of what the choice is in November between a president who protected our border and another president who has basically opened it to everyone in the world, including many who are here to do us harm.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the questions that I have is why more people don't understand what's happening there. At the end of the trailer, the gentleman is there at the border, at the river, the Rio Grande River. I'm assuming near Eagle Pass is what it looked like to me, but I wasn't sure. But he issues an emotional challenge to Joe Biden. Telling him he can go to hell because he's worried about these kids, these 2-year-old kids that parents or whoever, we don't even know who these people are that bring these little kids through that concertina wire, across the Rio Grande River, all the way up through sometimes from the Darien Gap in Panama and before that by foot. They're at risk of sexual assault, drug use, murder. I mean, there's millions of clothing items, ID cards, and shoes, bodies found on the trail, and the American people don't seem to be that aware, unless maybe that gentleman was because he lives at the border, that it's such an emotional thing for him. We need all Americans to see this issue through his eyes, don't we? And people like him.
Absolutely. And to understand, this isn't something that just started happening the last several months of the last year. I've been down to the border many times. My company has been teamed with a construction company from Texas, and we have been building border wall, including border wall down there, near the in the Rio Grande Valley up until President Biden shut us down. But many a nights I would take people out to places like La Jolla, which used to be a hot spot as well, to see how this was being handled. And Rob, it's sickening because it had gotten to the point where it was so random, and the Border Patrol was working so many overtime shifts, being called back from their homes to basically handle and process all these, I'm going to call them criminal migrants, coming across, that it got to the point where the cartel was actually running what I would call a boutique travel agency, a travel service. And they got to the point where they started calling the Border Patrol and telling them when and where there was going to be crossings, so the Border Patrol could plan their shift, work, and how many people had to be on at midnight, for example. I was there one time when probably it was in the range of 30 to 40 that came across. One guy who had tried to come across several times, they put a wristband on him, the cartel, and if they don't get across the first time, they get sent back. They get 3 tries. Well, the Border Patrol started cutting off those wristbands. When he was coming back, he was shot. He was there. He had been shot in the leg, but he made it. But the sad part, the emotional part, were about a half a dozen unaccompanied minors, some teenage boys in their ages of 15, 16, maybe 17, but also a young girl by herself, age 12. And I, speak a little Spanish and was talking to them to find out their names, their ages. And then I asked a question, where are your mother and father? To a person, they kind of sunk their heads and teared up, and their answer was, we don't know. And the young lady who was there, the young girl, it was clear that she was just totally traumatized. And when you see this and you realize that there's 85,000 minimum that have been released into our country, and we don't know who they are, where they are, or what has happened to them, and yet it doesn't get covered. It doesn't get covered by the news. It's not in people's faces every day. And by and large, the bulk of Americans don't see this problem, although it's coming to a neighborhood near you soon. And the movie is designed to basically shock people into realizing that we have to put an end to this. We need to get President Trump back in office, and within weeks, he'll have the place shut down again. And then we can deal with the problem of what do we do with the criminal migrants that are still in our country.
Oh, absolutely, sir. We have to get our arms around this problem. I ran on it in 2014 as my number one platform issue: border security and illegal immigration. So we got to take a break, sir, and we'll take a question from the live audience on the backside of this break. Before I want to dive in with you a little bit about where our priorities need to be to get this man elected, so we can re-implement the right policies and secure our border. I'm Rob Maness, talking with Veterans for Trump National Spokesman, retired Admiral Chuck Kubik, about Border Invasion, a new movie documentary that they've put out, and the issues that we need to be facing going into win in November and get Donald J. Trump reelected again. We'll be right back on Patriot.tv.
Joining me at the news desk now is Rebecca Walzer of WalzerWealth.com. She has been a regular guest on my TV show, Brennan House Live, for a long time. She's not just an economics expert, but she's an attorney. Rebecca, you have a large firm. How many people work for your firm?
Just about 30, yes.
30. And
yes.
Tell me, how can people prepare for what's coming with the end of the dollar as we know it?
The end of the fiat system as we know it globally. We are moving to hard asset-backed currencies again. Thank the Lord, because fiat is where we get into all the problems. When you have debt-based currency, you have debt-based problems. And the United States, unfortunately, since 2020, has not stopped spending at pandemic levels. This is systemic, and it is unsustainable, and it is coming to an end, especially with the addition of Saudi Arabia and the UAE to the BRICS nations. This is what controls our petrodollar. This is the threat immediately in 2024.
For more information, WalzerWealth.com. WalzerWealth.com. She is not your traditional financial planner. Find out why at WalzerWealth.com.
We've learned through the pandemic we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
You know, he's normal. He's kind of just like us. And this is a guy who owns a lot of buildings around the world and is a billionaire, but that's his base, right? That's the people who feel like they're getting screwed in this country. Ali Legge is with us now. She is Veterans for Trump, and I had a chance to talk to her earlier before the speech. You were there at CPAC. So Ali, what were you thinking? What were you hearing as he was speaking there? How was it for you?
I think this is just a huge example of his strong leadership, right? Right now, we are seeing weakness in our Congress. We're seeing weakness everywhere in our government, from school boards all the way to Capitol Hill. His speech was a show of strong leadership and very cognitive of his cognitive ability, for sure.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. That was Ali Legge, who's a leader in Veterans for Trump down in Florida, that was at the CPAC speech that the former president gave a few weeks ago. And we're talking with the national spokesman of Veterans for Trump, Veterans for America First, retired Rear Admiral Chuck Kubik, about the new documentary Border Invasion that's premiering this weekend. And it's going to be available on all the streaming channels and services that they can get it to as soon as that premiere is complete, I think on March 9th. Well, Admiral, welcome back to the show. Let's take a question from our live audience before we dive into some political issue priorities that I want to get your take on as we're headed to a general election now between Trump and Biden, it looks like. Go ahead, Kat.
That's good.
Go ahead, Rob. Got a question there.
Oh, good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. Admiral, this is more of a redundant question or a rhetorical question for myself, but I don't know if anybody else in the audience would know this. So we all know that as of right now, it's 8 million illegals that have come over during Biden's regime. But I saw another stat the other day that was actually mind-boggling and pretty staggering, that while we have 8 million illegals coming in and we're all forced to feel bad for the dreamers and the people that want to come here and work, there's a backlog of 24 million people who have applied the right way to come here, and we're not doing anything to try and help those people come over. What is the reason and the cause of that? That to me is a staggering amount of people that want to come over and be part of the American dream. 24 million.
Well, again,
That's a great
it's
question.
because
Go ahead.
because the existing system for immigration has always been a long pipeline, and anybody who is working in that system is basically avoiding bringing other people in while they're working on just processing, these millions of others. I'm personally working with an Afghan family. The father had worked actually with me when I was over there as a civilian contractor working on expanding the Kabul embassy. He and his family, 3 children, one who has a blood disorder, and wife had to flee about a year or more ago from Afghanistan into Pakistan. And he's been trying to come in legally as an Afghan refugee who basically supported the United States. And neither he nor I could even get anybody at the State Department to answer our phone calls. And so it's the whole system, I believe, of helping people who are trying to do it right has been shut down, and those resources have been, basically transferred over to helping these criminal migrants come in and trying to process them so that they would become, I guess, Biden voters in the future.
Yeah, I mean, another issue that I just heard about before we came on the show is that apparently the U.S. government has been paying for plane tickets to fly people that have used the One app to say they're asylum seekers into the United States. So we're actually importing on our tax dollars illegal aliens that are trying to jump the line in front of these 24 million people. And I'll be honest with you, sir, as I've run for the U.S. Senate on this issue as my number one issue, my biggest supporters were legal immigrants that had come through the process and were now in this country, and voters and citizens, and they are really mad about what is happening with the United States government and all of these non-governmental organizations and the cartels facilitating this, and getting in front of the line in front of people that have done it the right way is just another reason to oppose it.
Yeah, it's even worse than that, Rob, because and what Trump is going to have to do is not only reinstitute the controls to keep people from coming in illegally. We have a situation where all of this money is being siphoned from Health and Human Services and being laundered through NGOs, groups like Catholic Charities and others, who are basically making huge amounts of money, paying themselves huge salaries to take care of all of the needs of these migrants that come across, so that they don't stack up at the border and they get put into hotels, they get moved once they get here. One of the things we have to do is shut that flow of money down, tell those people to pack it up and go home. And when the people come across, put out the word, there is nobody there to help you, even if you do get through the tightened up border. So we have this whole operation. People are making money, a lot of money as their personal salaries, and to basically be the middlemen processing these people. The cartels no longer have to worry about how they get people across the river and into the cities where they begin to disappear into gangs and things. We're doing it for them, and you're paying for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's turn to a little bit of breaking news, sir. Governor Nikki Haley has suspended her campaign finally. I think it's way late because we've used a lot of resources up that needed to be focused on getting Joe Biden removed from office and Donald J. Trump back in as president so he can re-implement his policies. And I would add one other thing, sir, is he's also got to implement immediately a find and deport operation that'll probably go on for the entire 4 years of his term once he does get in office, in addition to all the other things that we've got to do to make the corrections on these policies. But so now Trump's got over 900 delegates from Super Tuesday last night. Haley's gone. She's out. Her voters, most of them didn't matter anyway because it's been proven they were Democrats through various polling mechanisms, and that's been confirmed. The border invasion has got to be at least the number one issue. What are the other three issues? I've heard him talk about energy dominance, aka the economy, a lot, and I've also heard him talk about stop the endless wars and stop the killing, which are the same things that I talk when I talk about him and what he's running for. I use those same set of core issues. Do you see that as it's going to change as we go into the general, or is he going to keep up the drumbeat on those?
Well, I think the border security, the economic, security, security in our cities. I mean, America, we're finding ourselves, our security is under attack, our economy is under attack, and our culture is under attack. But we also, now are going to be looking at, I think, increased threats from abroad. When Trump was president, we had, contained China, we had restrained Russia, and we were sustaining peace, in the Middle East. All of that has fallen apart. Earlier today, I heard that now we've had a Barbados registered ship actually take casualties from a Houthi missile strike. And I think it was just last week that we had Chinese ships ramming Philippine ships in the South China Sea who are trying to reprovision their forces on one of the Philippine islands. And so there's a sense behind there that as we get closer and closer, all of these things could begin to erupt. And we were going to have just so many things that we know were taken care of when Trump was president, that he has to be elected again. Otherwise, our country is going to go almost into a political dark age, I think.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that in less than 3 years, all of that has fallen apart completely. And now, people like you and I, national security professionals, are thinking about how do we reestablish things like nuclear deterrence over a Russian, Chinese, Iran, North Korea alliance. That we weren't even thinking about that really to a great extent, other than containing China, keeping Iran restrained through economic power. And kind of working with the Russians in part, and keeping an eye on them. The entire geopolitical and nuclear or national security situation has changed. And as we go into March 4th, November 4th, sir, how do we keep people motivated so they don't get complacent? Folks like you and I that pay attention to these things, we're motivated, but we've got to get the low information voter motivated and keep them that way, so the eye is on the prize, that 47 is named Donald J. Trump.
Well, one of the things we're looking to do as Veterans for America First, Veterans for Trump, is to issue a call to action to all veterans. We're expanding our network. The guest that you just had on, who was reporting from CPAC, it's going to be people like her who are willing to speak out, are willing to go into the cities, not just the places where we have a lot of America First voters, but go into areas where we can explain to them. We need to be out there. We need to be looking to get out the vote, but we also need to be reaching out to others who know internally that life is not as good as it was 4 years ago, and help them to understand that the only way out of the situation we see ourselves and they see themselves in is to elect Donald Trump president again. So we have a big outreach program that we have to do. We need to organize. And although, we look to America to take care of our veterans, and you and I know how important that is, at this point in time, we're going to have to ask our veterans to take care of America. We know they're not bashful. We know they're willing to stand up and talk. We need to make sure that message gets through to those people who are still not committed to Trump, although we have an awful lot of people who are just, totally committed to electing him president, as shown by the results yesterday.
Well, thanks very much for joining us today. We'll get this out to as many people as possible, Admiral, and that's right. Veterans and law enforcement officers and first responders, we're leaders. We're leaders in our community. We're leaders in our country, and we're going to take the lead on this election. And we will go into areas and talk to groups and crowds and individual voters that may not be committed yet, or just need to hear what the plan is, so that we can get this man elected and get this country back on track, which really is getting the world back on track and away from World War III. That was Veterans for Trump National Spokesman Admiral Chuck Kubik talking with the Rob Maness Show today, premiering The Border Invasion on March 9th. So keep your eye out on all the streaming services for that movie, especially right here at Patriot.tv. Tomorrow is Truth Thursday. Watch out. It's going to be a doozy. I'm Rob Maness. We'll see you later.